Global Broadcasting Networks presents Military Mom Talk Radio. We know behind every strong soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine is the family supporting them. With over 200 episodes in 17 countries, over 5 seasons, with 3 million monthly listeners, we are radio strong. We're here to share resources and experts on topics important to you, the military family. Join us. We've got another great episode starting right now. Here are your hosts, Sandra, Beck, and Robin Boyd. Well, welcome everybody. This is Robin Boyd with you today. Sandra has the day off. We are so excited to be continuing our Romance Roundtable series. We are doing this occasionally, and it's really exciting to not only highlight artists and authors, but to be able to sort of get a little bit more of the behind the scene of books and the thought process behind them. I know so many times you will read a story and you're just so gripped into it, and it's almost like losing a friend when the book comes to an end because you've just become a part of that character. But where that character comes from in the beginning, I think, is so fascinating. And we're going to talk to 2 gals today, wonderful authors, both acclaimed and awarded some very distinguished recognitions. Jodie Bailey is with us today, and Katy Lee will be with us in just a moment. Before we get started with our gals, though, I wanted to just sort of recognize that this month is Women's History Month. And if you happen to be on the U.S. Navy Facebook blog, you'll see that they posted today that on this date in 1994, they issued the first orders for women to be assigned on board a combatant ship, which was the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. And then earlier this year, I'm sure many of you are aware, the U.S. Department of Defense opened all military specialties to women, including all combat and special forces units. So not only do we salute and thank all of the women who have stepped up into these roles, we also want to sort of acknowledge some of the behind the scenes, as we were saying about authors and books, behind the scenes. And if you are aware of the story behind Rosie the Riveter from World War II, you'll know that there were many people, and there still are many people now, as was in World War II, behind the scenes and keeping America running while the active military people are doing their jobs. If you know the story, women back in 1942 were enticed by necessity. Most of the able-bodied men had enlisted, and they were drafted or had enlisted, and there were propaganda messages out there like, if you can use an electric mixer, so you can operate a drill. And they really did call American women to step up, and they did so in droves. Some sources put the number of women in the workplaces during World War II at about 19 million. That's 19 million women that were all doing jobs back here in America that normally would have been held by men, and were keeping industry and commerce and indirectly all of the necessities that were needed by the Department of Defense at the time, whether it be collecting scraps. And in fact, little girls, this particular article that I'm reading, which I'll let you know where I found it, talking about girls and young children on tricycles just picking up the scrap metal. And the recycling efforts were just so important back then. They are today too, in a different way, but certainly this was a remarkable feat by all of the women that were actively supporting their military and our military. The article that I'm reading is called Rosie's Kept America Running During World War II. It was originally published in December of 2015, and I happened to find it reposted again today on the USO Facebook page. So I encourage you to go and read this article. It was by Samantha Quigley. She quoted the song that was penned by Red Evans. All the day long, whether rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory, Rosie the Riveter. So we salute all the Rosies in our history and all the future Rosies, because whether we call them Rosie the Riveters or we just call them American military families, we're all here supporting our military. Today, let's say hello to two of our wonderful authors, Katy Lee and Jodie Bailey. Thank you, girls, for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yes, it's wonderful to see both of you, even though it's visually through Skype. Jodie, where are you Skyping in from today?
I teach yearbook in the afternoons, and I'm actually in an empty computer lab in North Carolina right now.
North Carolina. Okay. And so you're here on the East Coast. I'm on the East Coast as well. And Katy, where are you calling in from? Did we lose Katy?
It says she's here.
Yeah, I see that she's here. Well, Jodie, while we're working on getting Katy back, just if Katy, once you get on, just give a shout. Yes, you're here. Jodie, have you always loved writing? Even when you were a little girl, were you finding yourself doodling and jotting down, or did you do a lot of play acting when you were a little girl?
A lot of play acting, a lot of writing. I used to sit at my grandmother's desk with her little yellow electric typewriter and type stories. And when she died 5 years ago, and we were in her old secretary desk, and we just found stacks and stacks of stories I wrote from the time that I could draw pictures and write words. So it's always been
something. I was an elementary school teacher for many years, and one thing that I was so very enthused to see is that children's imaginations, and to be able to let them play act or let them create with whether it be little Lego pieces or my son had all of his little guys. They were called the little Star Wars guys. Yep. and he would have his little guys all lined up, and because we couldn't call them dolls, and it wasn't my choice. He chose to call them guys, and he would have these little scenarios going. And wouldn't you know that he, although he's a musician as well right now, and most of his writing is into the music field, it's still authoring and writing, and the creativity as an adult, I'm hoping, was because we let him be so creative as a child. So I love that factor. Katy, do we have you?
Yes, I am here. I'm sorry. I clicked the mute button, apparently.
Technology is wonderful, isn't it? We wanted to know, where are you calling in from today?
I am calling in from Connecticut.
We're all on the East Coast today. Yes, it's very rainy up here in New Hampshire, so I'm hoping you have some warmer, brighter weather down your way.
I do.
Katy, I was just asking Jodie, as a child, she loved writing, and she was saying how she had written stories with her grandmother's typewriter. What about you? Was writing always a part of you, or did you enjoy play acting or creating little scenarios when you were a girl?
I really was not a writer. I am a reader, first and foremost, and I've always been a reader. I used to devour the summer reading lists at school, and always got the award at the end when you come back at the beginning of the year that you read every single book on the list. So reading for me was really, that's all I ever thought that's all I thought. Writing was so far away from me that I thought, no, I can't be a writer. Those are like, certain people. That's not me. So it took me a while, though. I think it wasn't until 2009 that my brother said to me, "Why not you?"
Right, right.
It's not like these are real people that are writing these books. You can sit down and do it. So
And isn't that true? That's one reason why we love featuring authors on our show, because so many times people like you, Katy, have always enjoyed and been inspired by stories and authors and that fabulous creativity, and then not realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe I could do that. And in fact, I'm having this battle with my husband right now. He has so many stories in his head, but to get him to write down and start putting them on paper, I said, dictate them. You don't have to physically write, because he's challenged with the computer. He pecks away with his 2 index fingers and it takes him forever. And I said, just dictate it, or, just write some outlines longhand or whatever. The process can happen in any way, shape, or form. Katy, did you ever take any formal classes once you decided that you were going to be an author?
No, I did not. I took my brother's advice. I sat down, and in 3 months, I had a manuscript, and then I had no idea what to do with it. So what I did is I joined Romance Writers of America, and I went to my first national conference down in Florida in 2010, I think it is. And I learned that I did everything all wrong.
No.
But I was just, you're pleased that you actually got to the end and like, wow, I actually did complete this and I can do this. And so from then on, it was taking any online courses that I could. It was attending my Connecticut chapter here. They have wonderful speakers and trainers that come in each month. And I just soaked it all up like in a sponge and as much as I could. And I sold my first book in 2012.
Wow.
So in those first 3 years, it was just taking as much as I could in. And even today, I am still learning. You never stop learning. There's always a new way of doing something or a new way of looking at something that you didn't see before. And it's just always keeping your mind open that there is more out there to learn and you don't want to miss it. So
absolutely.
Don't act like you know everything.
We've got our first break coming up. Jodie Bailey and Katy Lee, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about your books, your topics, but we're also curious about a little more about your writing process. So do stay tuned. We're with Katy and Jodie for the next hour. We've got lots more ahead. Stay with us on Military Mom Talk Radio.
Secret Cuisines and Sacred Rituals is a quest, a place, and a feast. Join host Vilasi Venkatachalam every week to explore myths, mystique, old medicine, and brilliant modern solutions through a dazzling kaleidoscope of cuisines, cultures, and cures. This is the place where tribes gather, strangers and familiars, to be memory keepers and makers of our evolving, enduring, evergreen, spoken legacy of wisdom and ingenuity. In Vilasi's words, when we do old things in new ways and new things in old ways, we paint with an inspired palette, weave our own healing traditions, and become our own guru. Vilasi is a troubadour of secret cuisines and sacred rituals. She collects stories of wisdom, ingenuity, and grit. She believes wellness and transformation happen when you stand at the threshold of delight and discovery. She displays her hidden penchant for drama when she leads the safari at the supper club. Her favorite pastime is to extol the marvels of cuisines, cultures, and cures. To her audience in workplaces, seminars, and salons, her mantra is, be your own guru. She is a biochemist, botanist, and alchemist who likes to churn delightful, useful things from a brew of art and science, ancient and evolving, old medicine, and new cures. Join Vilasi every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
It's words you never heard. few years ago, some fishermen off the coast of Italy discovered some pottery along with fish in their nets. Divers were called out and discovered an ancient Roman ship whose galley, or caboose, a nautical term for kitchen, was extremely intact. Some of the food uncovered on board was pickled fish, wine, oil, and grain used to make the ship's biscuits, otherwise known as dandy funks. It is thought the 2,000-year-old boat was probably on its way to Spain when it sunk and was covered by layers of mud, baggy wrinkles and all. Baggy wrinkles are another name for the ship's ropes. The mud protected the ship from wear, explaining why the leftover food on board was still in such good condition. We land lubbers may not be familiar with leftovers on the sea, but we are familiar with leftovers in our kitchen.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
We're back with more great conversation on Military Mom Talk Radio. Welcome back, everyone. This is Robin Boyd with you today on Military Mom Talk Radio. Sandra has the day off, but in her absence, I have two wonderful ladies that we're chatting with, Katy Lee and Jodie Bailey, both authors, as we continue our Romance Roundtable discussion. At the beginning of the show, we were sort of talking about what inspires us and how one might become an author. And now I was wanting to focus a little bit more about the specific, most recent books for each of you. Jodie Bailey, you've just released Compromised Identity. When both of you have a good library already of very accomplished works, but I'm sort of curious of both of you, and maybe I'll start with Jodie. When you begin a story, is it sort of all kind of there in your mind, beginning, middle, and end, or do you develop sort of a problem or the crux of the story and then build from the issue out how it either comes about or how it's resolved? How do you begin your story?
I'm a romance writer first, and so I can get really bogged down in the relationship and the happily ever after and the cute meet and all that stuff. And so when I write the suspense, I have to force myself. I don't start with the characters yet. Sometimes I kind of have an idea, but I spend a lot of time just trolling through crimes, like military crimes, like crimes that have happened on post, crimes that have, and Compromised Identity actually came out of a news story I just stumbled upon, and I just built and twisted and figured out all my criminal stuff, and then I started populating it with my people, who I kind of had an idea about, but I wasn't 100% sure. But if I don't start with some sort of idea of what the problem is and what the suspense is going to be, then I never get there. We just have a contemporary romance.
I can only imagine that you would almost have a book the size of Hawaii or something. You know, in my mind, I would want to just kind of keep on going. It must be difficult to sort of curb it. And I would say that the episode, if you will, or the topic is what sort of contains you. What about you, Katy? Do you find that that your character comes first, or do you find that the situation comes first?
Okay. Well, first I will say there is a industry word count that would stop you from writing a book that big.
True.
And it's really hard to stop.
My editor would not let me go over 60,000 words. And even then she says, could you do 57,000 instead?
Wow.
So they do stop you to a point. They don't want it to go that long. But as for me, I get a lot of my ideas from reading nonfiction. I read a lot of magazines, articles online. Even in my research of a book that I may be working on presently, I'll find something during my research that I'll be like, write that down, because I could do a whole book on that. And I'll file that away for later on to work on in the next series or the next books. So I would say a lot of times it's really just learning, even through experience, things like that kind of spark an idea for a story. And then I usually, because I do write an inspirational theme through my story, I do try to find a scripture that I think that would make a good message for the book. And it's from there that I create the characters that I think would portray that message perfectly. So it's they're not I don't do characters first. That really comes third in the process of who I think would be the best character, their traits, everything about them that would be able to tell this story better than someone else I created first. So that's kind of where I put my character development. First it's story idea, then it's the message, and then it's the character at that point for me.
Do each of you write with a box of Kleenex at your side? Because I got to tell you, I'd be there weeping my way through every book.
I would say that doesn't happen until before I send it off to my editor, and I've read it through 3 times, and I finally have it the way I want it. Because in the writing process, it's really ugly, and
it is.
I mean, it's really bad. And you just have to say, okay, I just have to get the words on the page. Yeah. And then once they're on the page, then I can go ahead and make it all pretty and make it all emotional. And then usually by 3rd time through is where I'm a blubbering mess at that point.
Jodie, you too, I suppose, right?
Katie's in my head. She's like, everything she says, I'm like, yep. But yeah, I've there might be tears because I'm over it and done, and we'll go feed rabid alligators and never write again. I've only cried once. I've only made myself cry once. And that was in a book that's not yet published. One of the ones you were asking about earlier. I knew I had to have a character die, but I wasn't sure who. And then I'm writing along and figured out who it was and was like, no. But it worked. It was like my subconscious had it all worked out. But I was still shocked and very unhappy sitting in Panera Bread Company. Like, everybody's staring at me. So.
I am definitely a crier. I've always been. My mother and I would watch a Hallmark commercial, and we'd both be sharing, the box of tissues, because we both have that sensitivity that it doesn't take much. My kids would say something, and they just know that bloop, mom's gonna cry. And when my son, as I was saying, is a musician, would write something and play it for me, he'd just watch and he'd wait. And if I didn't cry, he knew he had to work on it some more. So that was the barometer for him.
I had a book that I had come out in the I finished up in the summer, and I finished it, and I went out in the living room, and I sat down and told my husband, I'm done. It's all done. I'm all happy. And he's like, you're not crying. He's like, get back in there. You're not done.
I love it. That is just so perfect. Just so perfect. Well, Katy, your recent book, let's talk a little bit about your most recent book.
Okay. It's called Silent Night Pursuit. It did come out in December. It can be read all year long. Yes, it takes place around Christmas time, but it's really a romantic suspense. And it's really difficult to create a suspenseful book that's kind of got a homey feel at Christmas time, because your characters have to be in danger and on the run or being chased by something or somebody. So like I said, they can be read all year long. It doesn't matter that it's came out at Christmas time. But it is a story of a soldier with post-traumatic stress disorder, and he has a service dog named Promise, and he's kind of by-the-books kind of guy, which creates some conflict when I bring Lacey in, who is my heroine from South Carolina, and she races race cars. And she is kind of like a fly by the seat of her pants type of gal. So that creates some conflict between the two of them. But really, I wanted to portray the message because I use the dog. I think of dogs, I think of unconditional love. And I thought that the dog would be a great way to show that message through the book. So Promise really, for me, steals the show. I just adore her. And she just really helped Lacey understand what it meant to be unconditionally loved and how to give unconditional love. And so that's really the message of that story.
Maybe Promise is the protagonist instead of Lacey. Because maybe, isn't it interesting that the tie in the whole book is Promise?
Yes, that's exactly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We'll talk a little bit more about this in just a couple of minutes. We've got another break coming up. And on the other side, Jodie, let's talk a little bit about compromised identity, because this is your latest book. Was this just released in January, did you say?
Yes, in January. And it's actually part of a series, so there's another one coming in August.
Wow. Oh, and now when you said series, and there again, we've only got a couple minutes before the break. When you say series, did you sort of have the series in mind originally, or was it because once you began Compromised Identity, there just wasn't enough room in this book, so you knew that there had to be an extension?
It's not like technically a series. They're tied together by the characters. But I had actually written the book before, Smokescreen, that came out last year. And it involved a soldier who had been kidnapped. And I when I got to the end, I really wanted to know his story. So I wrote it. And then everybody fell in love with this third guy who popped up in both books. So he got his own book too. So, I kept getting these letters about, what about Tate? Well, okay. So it just kind of happened. And then I ran out of guys in the books, so I ran out of books.
On to a new story, I guess. Yeah. Well, we are heading into another break, girls. So on the other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about these particular stories. But I also want to talk a little bit more about some of the inspiration that has brought you to these stories. If you've missed any of this show or any of our other 200 plus shows, please go to militarymomtalkradio.com. You can always find us on iTunes. You can find us on Facebook. Friend us there. We've got lots to chat about on Facebook all the time. We're there on Twitter as well. So do stay tuned. We've got Jodie Bailey and Katy Lee today talking about our Romance Roundtable continued series, talking about our wonderful love of books. So stay tuned. We've got lots more ahead. Stay with us on Military Mom Talk Radio.
In today's business world, a helping hand or idea that doesn't come with an invoice is a treasured find. And if that happens to you, then you need to pay it forward to keep other entrepreneurs from making mistakes or getting a raw deal. It's called Paying It Forward with Josephine Gerasi, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Central. Josephine is going to have the guests describe their accomplishments, the lessons they've learned, both good and bad, and then sharing those pieces of knowledge as we create a movement of paying it forward. For more information about Josephine, her business, and background, you can go to mymomknowsbest.com. Josephine Gerasi has always been a problem solver. She saw this need and has turned it into a movement. It's Paying It Forward, with tips, tools, and advice and hard lessons learned. These pieces of knowledge can make a huge difference for you, your business, and others. So join us for Paying It Forward with Josephine Gerasi, Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
The letter F was salvaged from the linguistic scrap heap by the Romans. It has remained in use in the Roman alphabet ever since, and now accounts for 2.5% of any page of written English. So today I thought I would give you some fantastic words that start with the letter F. False eloquence is an 18th century word for lying. Fanfaronade is a 17th century word for an arrogant boaster. While a flapdoodler is a 19th century slang word for a person who talks nonsense and rubbish. A filly-loo is a noisy uproar. And my favorite F word ever, floxy-noxy-knee-hilly-pilly-fication, which means worthless trivia. For more letter of the day words, download my free app at toofunnyforwords.com.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
We're back with more great conversation on Military Mom Talk Radio. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Military Mom Talk Radio. Sandra's got the day off today, but I'm here with you with Jodie Bailey and Katy Lee. You can find Jodie Bailey at jodiebailey.com. It's JODIEBAILEY.com. You can find Katy Lee at her website, katyleebooks.com, and that's KATYLEE books.com. We're so glad you're both here. And I was just saying in our back end that it's up in New England here. It's such a rainy, dreary day today. What a day to curl up on the couch with a cup of tea and a blanket and a great book. And both of you would have so many to choose from. And I love the thought that you have love inspired suspense, because I think everybody loves a love story, and everybody really gets into that dream of the character when you're reading a romance novel. But I love the element of suspense that each of you have woven into your books. It really is gripping, and I think it begins the edge at that. A little bit of tension, and I think tension has to happen so that you kind of come to the end with a resolution. In whether sometimes books don't always have a happily ever after, or it has a twist that, oh my goodness, I didn't think that was going to happen. Do you work hard on your surprise, Jodie, or do you really think that it must be difficult to sort of come to the end of your books because there's a lot going on?
It is, and I do have to work at it because, like I said, I'm romance first, and so I really have to work at dropping clues, putting in the red herrings, making sure it's not too obvious, but it's not too much a surprise at the end. And it really, sometimes it surprises me. You're writing along and you think you know where you're going, and then the phone rings and somebody's dead, and you're kind of, I didn't see that coming. So sometimes I have to plot, but I'm also very seat of the pants where I just I'm going along and things change on a dime sometimes. But yeah, putting it all together and making it all fit at the end. Sometimes it's a matter of a lot of it, and I hear so much of me and Katy when she says, I'm going along and I'm working and things change, and the revision, the first draft is killer. It's tears. It's pulling things out. It's putting things on the page just for the sake of it. And the real writing is in revision, and going back and those things that happened at the end, making sure there's the foreshadowing in the beginning. And so it's tough. It is tough to make all that suspense come together and the mystery work out and the happily ever after happen. And to do it in a way that's real, that at least the story is real, because you can get a little MacGyverish sometimes, and that's a little harder. People don't buy that in books as much as they do when it's MacGyver on TV.
Yeah, exactly. No duct tape. It's not going to work.
Unless, you've tied up the hero and heroine with the duct tape. Then it works. But other than that, no chewing gum and stopping acid leaks with chocolate. So it doesn't happen.
Jodie, what's compromised identity a little bit about here?
I really wanted to explore, like I was saying earlier, I had this character in Smokescreen, which came out last year.
Yep.
And he was kind of the MacGuffin. He was what drove the story forward, what kept my hero and heroine together and moving forward, trying to save him. And he went through a lot. He was kidnapped overseas and tortured, and he was feeling like he was responsible for almost getting his 2 best friends killed in the course of this investigation he was involved in. And when I got to the end, I really wanted to know what happened to him. And one of the things I like to explore, because it was something I dealt with a lot when I was younger, is fear. And what happens when we are sort of out of control and we're pushed to our limits, we're pushed to our edge. And so I really wanted to deal with Sean and how he dealt with, I'm a tough, strong soldier, but I'm falling apart inside. And so I put him on another investigation in Tennessee, on Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is on the border of Tennessee. And I had him come up against this girl who her military laptop's been stolen twice, and they gradually begin to uncover that somebody is stealing soldiers' identities. And initially they think it's a terrorist attack, but it turns out to be something so much more personal by the end. So that's the gist of the book, both the behind the scenes and a little bit of the plot without giving too much away.
Sure, of course. Sure. Yeah. Katy, I'm kind of curious. Do you have a hard time dividing fiction and nonfiction as far as if you're doing any kind of research or exploring the possibility of a topic? Does some of that research sort of need to become fiction, and does that become a problem, or are there really some? Do you have to put that disclaimer that these are not based on real people? Yes,
I would say my first love-inspired suspense is called Warning Signs, and my heroine is deaf, and I based the story learning about a school off the coast of Maine. It was a deaf school, and there was a lot of abuse at the school, and the school ended up being closed down. And so when I read this, I started to think of a story that would go along the lines of this true story. Yeah. Obviously, I did not want to exploit the students that were in that school, so I kind of stepped back from that and created my character and made it a regular school instead. And I still kept it on the coast of Maine, but it's so far from the actual real story that you could tell the difference between the two, definitely. So there is a little bit of the inspiration part of where I got the story from, but I did take it and I changed it to create a fictional story. But definitely that's kind of for how I came about with it, though that's where the roots of the story are from. But the reader themselves wouldn't feel that I was stealing, a rip from the headlines story and calling it my own. Right. What about you, Jodie? Do you find that it's difficult sometimes if you have a true situation that you want to write about?
There's always that twist. And like I said, compromised identity, I had actually read a news article about a soldier who was stealing identities of other soldiers for his own purposes. And you just you do this thing, and I'm sure Katy does it too, where you sit there and you start this, you're driving down the road and you're thinking, well, what if it wasn't just stealing identities? What if there was murder? What if there was, what if it wasn't terrorism? What if it was something else? And so, you get this germ from reality, but you really do just kind of play with it. It's like Play-Doh. It starts as one thing and ends up as something else. And I feel like I like what you said about, respecting, the real people. You never want to disrespect what people have gone through, and you never want to disrespect. That's always on my mind. I never want to disrespect anything about the military. Or what anybody's gone through. And so there's this striving to get it right, but to not be so specific that it can be tracked back to somebody. Sure. Knowing that you're writing about the military, have you ever been faced with a situation where possibly you would not want to give details? Have you ever been asked not to share anything because the military does have some protocol? Yes. I sat with my husband. I sat with my husband one night, and because he'll help me work out plots and military stuff, and we had this whole thing going, and he goes, "Oh wait, you can't use any of that."
Yeah. That's confidential.
No, wait, never mind. You can't use that. So yeah, that does happen. And I'll come up with it. I'm constantly, bless his heart, he has text at work, and I'm constantly on his, work. I am going, can I do this? Can I say this? Yeah. Is this okay? So I definitely don't want to, yeah, that's a tough one. And I'm sure Katie's been there too.
Yeah, but. Katie, you as well?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I will say that it can be, when doing my research, like I had a scene from the book, my Christmas book, where they have, my hero has to rappel from a helicopter. And I wrote it, and I sounded like such like a procedural that it was like dull, and even my editor wrote back, she's like, can you make it more exciting? The readers really aren't going to be jumping out of a helicopter. They don't need to know every step along the way. So it's also like trying to make it realistic, but yet, you don't have to share all these little details like that kind of slow you up when you're reading.
Sometimes you make up something that's real, and so my husband will go, I don't know where you got that, but don't use it. And I'm like,
that sounds very much like in Apollo 13. I know that NASA had gone to Ron Howard and said, "Where did you get that footage? That I don't think we've ever seen that footage." And of course, his people had made that footage, but it was so real that they thought that it had been real footage. So it was a compliment, obviously, to the people who had done all of that animation for him. But there you go. You both have that gift that whether it was true or not, it became true in those books, and it became true in your characters. We've got one more break coming up, and it just seems like the hour is flying by. I do want to talk a little bit about the family members that you do have that are in the military, and if that gives you I want to say more inspiration, because so many times I think our military stories are news-based, and I think we always need to remember the behind the scenes of our military. So let's talk a little bit about that on the other side of the break. And of course, we want to make sure that we have everybody visiting your websites, because both of you have an array of books that I want everybody to find. Jodie Bailey, and it's JodieBailey.com. You can find Katy at KatyLeeBooks.com, and Katy is spelled KatyLee books.com. And of course, you can always find more information about this program and all of our others at MilitaryMomTalkRadio.com, as well as our channel at iTunes. So find all of these, and we will be back with Jodie and Katy in just a moment. We've got lots more ahead. Stay with us on Military Mom Talk Radio.
If you could live your life truly standing in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, wouldn't that make your heart soar? Now you can, with Lessons in Joyful Living, with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi, Mondays at noon Central. Kimberly Rinaldi, having created a highly successful coaching practice, now teaches Lessons in Joyful Living. She believes in empowering others, and that through it, you have the ability to break through any and all barriers, thus allowing you to reach your greatest potential and joyfully step into your life's purpose. What used to take weeks, months, or even years, she can now teach you in a matter of hours with her programs. For more on Kim and her show, go to her website, KimberlyRinaldi.com. That's RINALDI.com. Then join us for Lessons in Joyful Living with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
It's words you never heard.
What was the first item ever sold on eBay? Believe it or not, it was a broken laser pointer, sold in September 1995 for $14.83. The founder of eBay asked the buyer if he knew the laser pointer was broken when he bought it. The owner simply said, "I'm a collector of broken laser pointers." Seems pointless to me, but this seemingly worthless item was a bellwether of merchandise to follow. Here are some Gifu jets or other unnecessary items that have been sold on eBay. Some Goostrom noodles will buy anything, even a cornflake. Yes, a cornflake shaped like the state of Illinois, sold for about $1,350. What was one of the most expensive eBay.com purchases? A $140 million yacht.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
We're back with more great conversation on Military Mom Talk Radio. Welcome back, everyone. We're here today, and we're so grateful to both Jodie Bailey and Katy Lee for being with us today, talking about romance novels, but our romance novels with the suspense, their love-inspired suspense stories, which I find is a wonderful. I'm very appreciative of the twist. I do enjoy mysteries and I do enjoy romance. So to have them both all together makes it a pure delight to sit down and read your books. Both of you have family members who have been in the military. Both, I understand, are retired now. Katy, your dad is retired, and Jodie, your husband, is retired. Jodie, do you find, I'll start with you first, do you find that it's difficult pulling information out of your husband if you needed military stories or information?
He'll talk pretty readily about facts. And like, of course, I don't know any, national security crazy secrets. The things we were talking about a while ago that I know are like tiny little crazy things. But that I can't use those little bitty details, but there are some things that they can't talk about and some things that sometimes they won't talk about. But when it comes to the details and the, how would you address this person or what would you use for this? And he loves doing it. Like I said, I am with him at work going, can I do this? Can I do that? Half of our day is going back and forth while I'm writing going, with him going, no, you can't do that. And I freak out because it's a whole plot point that changes the whole story.
Yeah, it did. What branch did he serve with?
He was in the Army. And so I tend the joke around our house is that I find out things when he tells somebody else. We'll be sitting somewhere and something will come on the TV and he'll go, wow, that's exactly what an IED sounds like when it goes off under your truck. And I'm like, why do you know that? Or he'll say something to somebody else, tell a story to one of his buddies. And I'm like, I never heard this before.
That's so true. There's so many things. I was doing a show last year, was it? Or we had sort of a music show, and I was pulling some songs together for the particular show. And there's one song my husband has really loved, and it talks about a man buying an elderly woman was calling a Chevy, and it ended up being a Corvette, and there was a note inside. And if you know the song "Riding with Private Malone," that is the song that he was so fond of, and I didn't know why. And when he really explained it to me, he says, we don't talk about we never talked about going home to other things. What we would talk about is what we were going home to was our car, and how they couldn't wait to get home to their car or the car that they wanted to buy or their dream car. And that was such a poignant message to me. I never would have thought of that, but that was why that particular song had so much meaning to him, was just something as simple as that, and a completely different facet that I probably never would have even understood had he not explained it to me, what that meant. Katy, you said your dad served in the Air Force?
Yes,
was that
my
what
dad,
you said?
he's in his 70s now, so it's been a while. yeah, he retired probably, he was like 60. So he was in it for a long time.
I guess he was. Do you find that he would never share things at home, or what do you remember as a girl?
Yeah, he never shared anything with us. It's really now that he's getting older and that I'm writing, that I might call him up and ask him a question or go over to his house and sit with him. And I may never use the things that he shares with me in a story, but he's obviously just sitting with him, and he'll take out books upon books of things that he had used when he was in the military, and try to just pump it all out to me, so he has a wealth of knowledge that he has kept within him. I see that for many years, so it's kind of nice now that we can share these things together. And I find that he's sharing a lot more now than he did when we were younger.
I'm so glad. I know, as I said earlier, my husband is hesitant to write, and I think it's more of a mechanical holdup than it is the thought process, because I have a feeling once he starts, it's just going to come pouring out of him. But I'm so glad at least he shares. My dad was the same way. He was Marine, very closed mouth, never shared anything at home. I didn't know anything about him in his service until I married my husband, who was Army, and of course they had a Marine Army thing going on, which was really fun at the dinner table. That was always fun. But there were so many things that they shared, and now we'll be watching something on the History Channel or whatnot, and my husband will say, that was your father's MO, or that was your father's position, and he was there, and I had no idea, idea.
Yep.
So it's wonderful that at least they're passing on their stories, because I think that camaraderie is really important. But I'm also appreciative for the opportunities that families have, whether it be a show like ours, or there's so many more internet-based networking. We have a wonderful Facebook group, for example, that is on our show frequently, called Parents of Military. Here I just had a little blackout in my brain. Marcella Stretch is the coordinator for it, and we love having the fact that there are places for families to just in the middle of the night to be able to tap on and say, I need a virtual hug, or anybody hear any good news today, or I just need thoughts, and just those kinds of support, because that really makes us all get through the things that we've got to get through. It's going to happen one way or another, so we better get there with our chin up, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some writing tips? We've probably got just a little bit more time before the end of the show, which has been a fast show. Jodie, what's sort of a couple of quick tips if somebody really did want to sit down and start putting some thoughts on paper?
Piggybacking off something both of us said earlier, is just write it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. Don't get hung up in the formatting. Don't get hung up in the right words. Just put something on paper every day. If you've got 10 minutes, put something on paper. No matter how much time, because that's where it starts. When you start putting words on paper, you're starting somewhere. Too many people are, I don't know what to write. I don't know, just do it. And eventually something will come out. The first book I ever finished was just the product of sitting down every day and writing, and sometimes not even knowing where I was going or what I was going to say that day. But it's too easy to say, oh, it's too hard today, I don't want to do it. And even now, and get up and walk away. Some days I know I'm putting garbage on the paper, but I am constantly saying you can't edit a blank page.
Yeah. Katy, what about you? What is a quick tip for you?
I would say get out and experience the world. You learn so much from doing things, reading about things, just more than just sitting around watching television. You're going to learn so much by getting out and doing and experiencing new things out there. And those are things that will come back in your writing. You'll find you'll draw on them. And you wouldn't be able to do that if you hadn't experienced it firsthand. But I will also say, if you're considering writing, to own that and don't hide it. I kept that a secret for a long time, and when I finally had to say I'm a writer, I got a lot of mixed reactions from people that I was really surprised about. I thought they would support me in it, but I had to accept that. Well, if I wasn't proud of it, how can I expect them to be? So I had to own that and say, I am a writer, and this is what I'm going to be doing, and I would really appreciate your support in this. But like I said, you have to own it first and be proud of it first. So don't hide it.
It's such an interesting point of view, and such good advice. I think, no matter what we do, I think we ought to have that self-confidence to be able to say, this is my point of view. This is my vision or of life, and that's it, and that's the truth. She, with that little girl, Edith Ann used to say, and that's the truth. Do either of you prefer pen and paper, or do you dictate into a dictaphone or a recorder?
I just type.
Type. Katie types.
I plot and do characterization by hand, pen and paper, but I write, like the drafts are all typed. Writing by hand is, my brain works. I type faster than I write, and my brain works faster than I can write. So
yeah. A lot of my brainstorms, if you will, come in the car. So there are so many times I've fortunately learned how to be able to flip over, just tell Siri to to type something for me, because it's always in the car that I think of things. And then the minute I get out of the car, I'm into whatever job or whatever task I'm doing, and the thought is gone. So I find I need to find a better way of just talking to myself in the car and documenting those things.
I'll have my kids dictate.
Yeah. Well, we have come to the end of the show, and I'm just so excited to have learned more about you gals personally, as well as knowing more about your books. KatyLeeBooks.com. Her most recent book, Silent Night Pursuit, you'll want to double check where you can find that. And of course, all the information would be on her website, JodieBailey.com, and it's JODIE Bailey.com. You'll want to check out Compromised Identity, and do watch. She's got more coming in the fall, and I love the inspiration that both of you have given all of us today. It's really exciting. So thank you, girls. What a wonderful time spending with you we've had today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you've missed any of this or any of our other shows, always check us out at militarymomtalkradio.com, and absolutely go to iTunes. We're always there. You got a spare afternoon? Download a podcast and listen to some great listening. We've got a lot of interesting shows to share with you. And we've got another one coming up next week. So we hope you'll be with us again on Military Mom Talk Radio. Take care, everyone. Thanks for spending time with us today on Military Mom Talk Radio. We've got more than 200 episodes available to you anytime on iTunes or at our website, militarymomtalkradio.com. Find us on Facebook or Twitter. We look forward to another great conversation